Hello everyone, my name is Griffin Shallis. I am one of our undergraduate financial aid counselors here at Pacific University, and in this video we're going to be going through the 2023-2024 FAFSA. So this is really just going to be kind of a step-by-step walkthrough through the entire process, kind of break it down screen by screen to help you get through it smoothly. So I'm just going to jump right into it so we can get moving along. So the first step is going to be, okay, where can I actually find the FAFSA form, right? So there's a couple ways to do this. So you can either go to what's called studentaid.gov, or if you're like me, you can just type FAFSA into the Google search bar, and it should come up and give you the federal student aid page that you can go ahead and click onto to go ahead and get started. So once you get onto studentaid.gov, this is going to be a general idea of what you're going to see. Now, there's a lot of information here. Don't be overwhelmed. It's all helpful and useful, but for right now, the main thing that you're going to want to look at is that FAFSA form tab on the top of the screen. Once you click on that FAFSA form tab, this little drop down is going to appear, and you're going to want to click Complete the FAFSA form. From here, you're going to have two options: either start a FAFSA form from scratch, or if you've already completed your FAFSA form, going back in and either making corrections or changes. For the purposes of this video, we're going to click Start here to New to the FAFSA process. From this screen, you have three options: either that you are a student wanting to start the FAFSA form, that you are a parent wanting to fill out the FAFSA form, or that you are a preparer helping a student fill out their FAFSA form. So go ahead and select whichever is applicable for you in your situation. For this presentation, we will be saying that we are a student and want to access the FAFSA form. From here, the form is either going to ask you to log in, create an FSA ID, or use personal identifiers to access the FAFSA form. Selecting Enter your personal identifiers will prompt you to enter the information shown on this screen here. If you select Login to continue, it'll prompt you to enter your FSA ID and password. Now, if you don't have an FSA ID, you can click on Create an Account, which we recommend doing, as the FSA ID is the best way to access all of your information in studentaid.gov. Once you are logged in, the FAFSA will ask you which year you are attempting to access the form for. For fall of 2023 starts, make sure you select the 2023-24 FAFSA form. It will then prompt you to create a save key. Make sure you keep this save key somewhere, as this is what you will use to get back into this FAFSA form if you have to go for some reason or need to sign out to go collect some additional information that you don't have handy. The FAFSA introduction page has a breakdown of some helpful info to know while you're going through the FAFSA. Clicking on any of these menus will show you more info. The FAFSA will first prompt for information from the student. Go through and enter all of the relevant information. Next, it will ask for an email address as well as a phone number. Students, make sure you put an email address that you check regularly, as this email is how the Federal Student Aid website will send communications out to you if they need any information or general information about deadlines and important announcements and things like that. Next, students will go through and enter their permanent address. After that, the FAFSA will ask about your state of residency. Go through and enter the relevant info here. Next, the FAFSA will have some questions about the student's education level. For most traditional entering freshmen, the answer to the first question will be their high school diploma. Following that, they will be most likely attempting to get their first bachelor's degree. And will they have their first bachelor's degree before they begin the 23-24 school year? Again, for most traditional first years, the answer is going to be no. And then that following question, what will your college grade level be when you begin the 2023-24 school year? For most traditional entering first years, this is going to be never attended college / first year. Finally, this last question: are you interested in being considered for work study? I always recommend students mark yes to this. This doesn't put you into any sort of agreement and has no negative implications, so I always recommend students mark yes. Next, students will enter their driver's license number and the state from which that license is. The FAFSA will then ask if the student was a foster youth or in the foster care system at any time, followed by getting the education level by each parent of the student. Next, students will add their high school to the FAFSA. Go through and enter the state, city, and high school name. After that, the FAFSA will show matches based upon the info you entered in. Check your high school. Make sure to double check that the information is correct and confirm your high school. Next, you're going to add colleges that you want to receive your FAFSA information. You can either do this similarly to the high school search where you put in the state, city, and school name, or you can add schools directly by their federal school code. For example, if you're wanting to add Pacific, our federal school code is 003212. Don't worry about putting every school that you want to get your FAFSA information on your FAFSA the first time through. Like I showed you in the beginning, you can always go back and make a correction to your FAFSA by adding new schools and taking schools off if you no longer want them to receive FAFSA updates from you. Similarly to the high school, any information you put in will show up results, and make sure to check the colleges that you want to send information to. Next, once you have the schools added, you'll want to select a housing plan. Those options are either on campus, with a parent, or off campus. Again, don't worry, these are not permanent settings or binding in any way at all. Next, the student is going to want to select their marital status. For the purposes of this presentation, the student will mark themselves as single. Next, the FAFSA will ask if the student has any dependent children or other dependents. For this FAFSA, the student will be answering no to both of these questions. The FAFSA will then ask questions regarding the dependency status of this student. For this FAFSA, the student is going to mark none of the above. Next, the FAFSA will ask if on or after July 1st, 2022, if the student was homeless or was self-supporting and at risk of being homeless. For this FAFSA, the student is going to select no. Based on the student's answers to the questions, the student will provide parent information on the FAFSA. The student will select I will provide information about my parents. If the FAFSA marks the student as independent, the student will not be required to provide parent information on the FAFSA. Next, the FAFSA will provide some information to the student on what info they should provide. Make sure you review these regarding your situation so you know which info you need to put into the FAFSA. Next, the FAFSA will ask for the marital status of the student's parents. Since this student marked married or remarried, the FAFSA will then ask the date that the parents were either married or remarried. The FAFSA will then begin collecting information from the student's parents. Go through and enter the applicable information here. If applicable, the student will then enter information for the other parent on this screen. The FAFSA will then ask for the parent's state of legal residence. The FAFSA will then ask for information regarding your parents' other dependents. Make sure you do not include yourself when you're putting information in this screen. The FAFSA will then determine your household size. After that, make sure you put the number of students in college, including yourself. Now moving on to the super fun stuff, tax info. So for this screen, go through and enter your parents' tax information here. Then they will be asked if they want to use what's called the IRS data retrieval. This is a super helpful tool that will make filing the FAFSA super simple and will just transport everything from the IRS over onto the FAFSA as possible. The FAFSA will notify you that your parent is eligible to use the IRS data retrieval. Then they can proceed to the IRS website to enter information to have that data sent over. Next, to use the data retrieval, you're going to want to identify which parent is filling in the information and then hit continue, where you will be taken to the IRS data retrieval site. If the parent is ineligible or decides not to use the IRS data retrieval, they will be required to put in tax information manually. We'll now go through and show you what info is required to be put in. One thing to take note of that's super helpful is on each of these tax information lines, it'll tell you where this is found. So for this question, it says this amount is found on IRS Form 1040 line 11. Additionally, if you see that question mark next to the box to enter the actual amount, it'll give you some more information there on what that amount is and where it can be found as well. Next, it'll ask both parent 1 and parent 2 what their income from work was in 2021. The FAFSA will then ask if your parents filed a Schedule 1. The user selected no. From this, there will then be a question asking if they want to skip the remaining questions about parents' income and assets. For the purpose of this presentation, to show you what these questions look like, the student marks no. They will then enter what their parents' income tax was for 2021. It will then ask for some additional tax items that may be on your parents' tax returns. Go through and review and enter each amount if applicable. Next, it will ask for some additional financial info. Go through and enter if any amounts are relevant. The FAFSA will then ask about any parent untaxed income. Make sure you review each item and enter an amount if applicable. Finally, we arrive at parent assets. It will ask you what the balance is for your parents' cash, savings, and checkings account, as well as the balance of investments and businesses. Next, the FAFSA will want student financial information. So, if the student filed taxes in 2021, they can either, once again, use the IRS data retrieval tool or go through just like I showed with the parent tax information and enter everything manually. But for the purpose of this presentation, I will not be showing the student financial questions since they are similar to the parent questions as well. Finally, we arrive at the FAFSA summary page. The FAFSA summary will show you a breakdown of all of the information you've included thus far. Make sure to review it and see if there are any mistakes entered or if anything needs to be changed. A new addition to the FAFSA this year is the demographic survey. Make sure to go through and complete these questions. Note that the answers to these questions do not affect aid eligibility in any way at all. Next, you will be prompted to complete an agreement of terms. Make sure you review and then mark that you agree. Finally, we arrive at the signature page for the FAFSA. For this FAFSA, both the student and parent will need to sign. For this, I recommend students sign electronically with their FSA ID. For this presentation, the student selected to sign later. Note that on the signature status page, it shows that the student has not signed the FAFSA. The student will need to sign the FAFSA at some point to have it processed fully. Next is the parent signature. Note that only one parent will need to sign the student's FAFSA. Go ahead and select which parent will be signing. The parent will then be prompted to complete an agreement of terms as well. The parent signature options are the same as the student's. Again, my recommendation is to always sign and complete with the FSA ID that the parents have created. If the parent has not made an FSA ID yet, there is a prompt to do so on this screen here. Again, for the purposes of this presentation, the parent is marking to submit without signatures, which again will mean that there will be steps needed to complete for the student and the parent to have their aid fully processed. Finally, the student will be able to finalize the signature and submit the FAFSA fully. Click Submit My FAFSA Form now. Congratulations, you've successfully completed the FAFSA. Make note that because these individuals did not sign their FAFSA, they will need to go back in at some point and sign with an FSA ID to finalize the aid to be processed at each school. Again, if there are any questions, please reach out to Pacific University's Financial Aid Office. We're here to be a resource for you, both in regards to things specific to Pacific University, but also just for the FAFSA in general. If you're going through the FAFSA, having issues, coming across something that's confusing, or if the site is just giving you trouble in general, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you and have a great day.